beautiful day in Toronto, and hello, everybody. How many hats do you wear in a day? That's something that we never really look at, do we? Welcome today to Let's Get Real. I'm your co-host, Glenda Kroll. I am a life reinvention specialist. And never mind am I that, I'm a mother, I'm an event planner. I've got so many hats on my head. I don't even know some days how my head keeps it all together. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for coming today.
How are you? You know what? It's like my body now just is muscle memory for Wednesday. It knows where to go, where to sit, what to turn on, and I love that part of it. I really do. And you're not kidding about hats, Glenda. I look back over the years, and no matter how old we are, we've always got the mom hat. And we still sometimes put our kids first, even though they're fully grown. It's yep. that too, muscle memory. And then in the mix of everything, we look back at who we were as a mom or a mother or a PTO president or whatever. And we look at now, and it's like, what hat am I going to wear next? So it's still, for me, it's still kind of up in the air, if you will, as I morph into, I guess, who I came here to be in this point of my life.
So that's interesting that you say that that you are going to what you will be. So but where are you now? Like we can't sort of go into what we're going to be. We need to also understand at a point, where are we right now? We can't be somebody until we know where we are, right? Like you can't go someplace until you know where your starting point is, so you can figure out how to get there.
Very true. Very true. And, I've had my head down. I've given myself to the end of this year to finish up some of the projects that I have been working on, which I've got books, I've got a course, I'm quantum healing is going to play a very big part of who I am. As it's something I've utilized. It's something I love. It's something that I know works. Forgiveness is what changed my life. I am going to be utilizing that in speaking about, not only did it change my life, it has morphed me into who I am now and who I will becoming. It's just something that I know what works now. I know where I am in terms of what makes me feel at ease with myself. For a long time, I didn't have my whole picture together. My puzzle was missing a few pieces. And it seemed like I was never going to figure it out. And all of a sudden, when you reflect, you look a little bit at what do you love? How does it flow together? How did it flow with me? And what I realized was how it flowed with me and how everything fit in is really kind of the core of how the healing starts, because forgiveness facilitates healing. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
And it was something that it never really dawned on me. Had I not started that little path for myself, I would have never been on this healing path. And, what happens is when we are on that healing path, we look back at the old us, and there could be a little bit of sadness. There can be a little bit of remorse, just what happened, what I wish I would have done better, what I should have done. But you can't go back, as you and I both know.
You can't live in the shoulda worlds.
No, absolutely not. And that's where we have to learn to climb up those stairs to where we need to be and just say, that was my lesson. That's who I was. I did the best with the knowledge I have. And now I'm going to step up and become even more of who I know I am.
So before we get really into this, I want to make an announcement to everybody. We had a beautiful guest that was scheduled today. Her name was Jennifer Ashley, and she is a remarkable woman. And unfortunately, she got ill this morning, and she is not going to be able to attend. We will definitely bring her on because she's really an advocate for ageless living. And that's kind of my whole mindset of my life. I believe as I go through life, and I'm definitely into the second phase of my life, probably more beyond that. And, it's all about ageless living. So we'll be going on to that. So today we're going to talk about having the hats on our heads, how many that we have, who is a person that we are, and how do we move forward into being who we really need to be. Because, we're not the same people in our 20s that we are now, like you and I, Nicole. We're now in our 60s. We're way past that point in life.
Yeah, yeah. I know age-wise we are, but mentality-wise, I'm not.
Well,
I don't
I
feel it.
feel right. And that's the whole just of life about doing. At this point in life, you and I are really so well connected because we're not the average. I really feel that 60 is the new 40, or 40 is the new 60, however way it
Right, right.
meant like that. Like I'm not around. Listen, a year ago, I wasn't walking on my own 2 feet. And then when I got to the point where I started having to use a cane from the crutches, I said, there is no way I'm going to be this little old lady walking with my cane. And that was my mindset, is that I had to do whatever I needed to do to get back and have my own 2 feet carrying me and keep me going. And I have been going ever since. Like, our energies are really high and strong and powerful. And that's what Nicole and I, are both set out to do, is to teach you as well to love who you are, because we have to go through sometimes that uncomfortable feelings of not liking who we are. And we've all been there. Nicole?
Absolutely. No, and my move from Arizona to South Carolina a little over a year ago kind of stopped me in my tracks in terms of what I did in Arizona, because I did yoga 5 days a week. We kayaked the Salt River. I was 15 minutes from a mountain, and I did something all the time where my body was always in motion, some way or another. And when I got here, it wasn't as abundant as I had the opportunities there. Now I've got the beach, which is great. But it was, as I look back, I probably should have been doing more, but I didn't feel like it here. And I think the move took more of a toll on me than I anticipated.
Mhm.
But just recently, Glenda, I kind of looked up from work. I'm like, no, you need to get out there, and you can't let your body atrophy like that. It's not good for me mentally. It's not good for me physically. So I thought, okay, what can I do that I really haven't done before? What can I get out there and do? Well,
Yeah,
guess what? It's paddleboarding.
I love
I'd never done that in Arizona. You'd have to drive to a lake, put it out there. Well, guess what? We've got marshes and places all over the place here where you can drop that paddleboard and, just get on it. And you don't even have to stand up. You can sit on your knees, you can sit down, but you can paddle. I did that on Sunday. And I started back to the gym a couple weeks ago. We've got a little gym here where I live, and my legs are really sore. I was so out of shape. But you just have to do it. Someone can't do it for you. And it's got to be a mindset. And then you do it for 21 days. There's your habit.
But here's the thing. First of all, I've been through those years. I'm pretty much an avid workout person. Like, I love, whether it's my speed walking and yoga, and, there's always something that I'm always keeping going. And listen, when I had my accident, I couldn't go and I couldn't do anything. I had to listen to my body. My body was stopping me from just from walking.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a problem.
right? But we need to learn that, if you want to well, let's talk about for a second of working out. I remember as a young person, first of all, very young, I never did any exercise until I was close to in my early 20s, because I got to a point where I got very heavy.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until that I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin where I started to take some action. And that involved of watching my eating and getting moving. And that has lasted me since then. I've been going ever since. But we need to, what happens is we jump in like we do to go to the gym, and we jump in and we power in, and we might end up working out for an hour. And then what happens the next day? You can't get out of bed. Have anybody been there? Well, certainly I have.
It was me. It was me yesterday. Absolutely. I'm like, oh, ow.
And that's what stops people from moving forward. So the whole idea, I was listening to a coach on actually on Clubhouse, and that's when I started thinking, because I do a lot of things that I don't even realize I'm doing. It's just part of, I guess, my superpowers that come in. There's something in me that drives me and channels me into that. Is when you first start out going anywhere and doing exercise, start out for 10, 20 minutes maximum, and don't give it all you got. Because the thing is, when you leave, you want to leave feeling good. Because if you leave feeling sore, the next day you're going to be more sore. And it's usually the third day where it really gets you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then what happens is then you start talking negative to yourself. Oh, I'm
True.
so tired. I don't want to do it. And you actually end up holding yourself back. And many people fall off at that point. So start off at short mounds, like I said, 10, 15, 20 minutes max, and do something and leave feeling good. And do that for like a week or two, even 2 weeks. And then gradually increase yourself at a slow rate, because you're not going to make it to the end unless you build yourself up, especially your muscles. Your body does, if you've been exercising for any time, you have muscle memory. Because I
Yes.
see myself jump back very quickly when I have stopped for whatever reasons. When I was, in my accident, I didn't work out for many, many months because I couldn't. And I saw how fastly my body just went back into it. So trust your body. It's really remarkable. And I'm such an advocate of watching animals, because it's right there in front of you. Mother Nature has everything zoned into us. So instead of pushing yourself where you're going to hurt yourself, start slowly so that you have a good feeling and you want to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you do it that way too, what's going to happen is when you are able to keep going, even if it's just in little increments, you're not going to talk bad about yourself. You're going to be able to go ahead and do it, just, even if it's every other day, every third day, whatever it is, there's going to be no negative self-talk, because you're continually doing it at your pace.
Love it.
So for me, that's a win-win. I'm mentally good. I'm physically strengthening my body, my mind. Everything's working in complete unison with one another.
So let's go back to our hats. You know, we live with so many hats on ourselves. Like you're saying, we're the mother. In my case, especially for my children, I'm the mother, I'm the father, I'm the grandmother, I'm the grandfather. I wear them all because there's nobody else for my kids to, they have their friends and so forth. But as far as family is concerned, so I tend to wear so many different hats, as I know you do too.
Absolutely.
And but the thing is we demand, because we are wearing so many hats, we demand a lot upon our own selves, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And it's very hard sometimes when you wear those hats, because maybe you have a fall at a time. Like, You know, I remember when the kids were really young, and when I was going through the first time I got divorced, I didn't handle it well at the beginning. And I I didn't really know because I was going through something in my own, the worry of the kids and how everything was going to affect them. I was worried financially because I didn't have any money, and all my resources were cut off, and I struggled and I worried, and from that worry I came out by doing a lot of yelling. And until the time where actually my son, as a little baby, said something, which all of a sudden, because you don't realize sometimes what we do.
Right.
And then I go back, and of course, I apologize because I believe in respecting others. I respect myself and I want others to respect me. So we show people who we want to be. But when we are aware of those hats, we have a lot of expectations on ourselves.
Oh,
How do
yeah.
you handle that?
I've gotten to a point where sometimes I just have to say no. And I'll give you an example. Both my girls are back in Arizona now, so I really can concentrate on my work. Whereas before, well, Mom, let's go do this, let's go do that. And I love doing things with them, but there's sometimes that I know I have to be responsible and do this. And so today she sends me a text and she says, do you know where that video is of me when I was playing the drums in San Diego? I'm like, Keely, that was like 2010. She goes, well, can you start looking for it and find it? And I wouldn't, not only would I not know where to start, but that would be just a huge distraction on my day to be expected to look for that video. Sure, I would love to see it too, but I can't waste hours and hours of my time with what I'm trying to do to find that video for her. So I just suggested, I said, and I've been thinking about this, but she's talking about coming out at the end of October. Well, that would be two people looking for it instead of one who's trying to work. So I've just learned that I can't do a lot of that stuff anymore. It's, my kids are adults, your kids are adults.
Yeah.
And they don't understand because I was a stay-at-home mom after Keely was born, she's 20 now, and then I went back to work when she entered 7th grade, because they don't really like you that much anyway after that. So I'll just go back to work. And they don't understand moms have other things to do besides them, and that is my fault. I mean, they came first for so many years, and it's just something us moms do. We want to make our kids happy. We want to just have them have this wonderful life. Doesn't always work out that way. But yeah, today I'm just like, no, I can't go look for that right now. Could be in storage, could be under my bed, could be in my shed. I have no idea.
And that's the hardest thing that we all have to learn to adapt to. Let's talk about the word no.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's the hardest word in the English language.
Mm-hmm.
And for years I never knew about no.
I was the same. I was a people pleaser.
Oh, hello, me too.
Yeah.
I grew up where I was born, and one day I'd like to get into this because there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with what I went through my life. I was considered what they called a glass child. Now, a glass child is a child, or I always, when I need to say, I can't remember the other name of the other word that they use sometimes for this person.
I've never even heard the glass child.
Okay, a glass child is a child that's born to families who have who are usually have family members with special needs or other necessary needs. And what ends up happening is the what we call the regular child doesn't have the same needs. So what ends up happening is the family and parents tend to look through the child because they don't, like, I didn't
Mhm.
have the needs my brothers had. So I wasn't on the top of the list. They looked at me and always said, "Oh, she's so strong, she'll manage it." And it was always, "Yeah, this, Glenda will do it. Glenda will do it. Don't worry about Glenda." And what ended up happening through those years, and it happens with this is very common with siblings that are born into families with, with family members that have special needs, and they're not, they're sort of somewhat ignored. Like, I knew I was loved and all the
Right.
rest, but I wasn't the first on the list. So I grew up basically being a caregiver from a child because they always had more needs.
Yeah.
Even as I went out to play with my friends, if I would see my brothers being picked on, then I would drop my thing and run to defend them and look after them. So that was where I came from. And I didn't know how to say no, is because it was kind of expected of me to always be there for them. So the word no in my vocabulary didn't really exist. And I had this all through my life. And so it only took until I was much older, actually becoming an adult and having children, that I started to look at life very differently and started to wonder about things that I had gone through. I did a video on this not too long ago. I tend to be a very much a reflector. I go back in my life and I reflect on it because it builds a lot of understanding, and I can really relate to who I am and what I've done and how I've grown through the years. But, as other family members, we will go into this something because there is more and more children being born in these days. First of all, there's many families who have special needs children, but there are more and more today of kids being born, whether it's the environment or something is happening, that there's more kids with autism and all sorts of things that they are challenged with. And there's a very difference of how we should be looking at things as a parent and as a sibling, because I see the siblings who are challenged, who are not heard, who so many things, and it's a real live situation out there. And I've lived through this my entire life, and I have a lot of knowledge. And now that I help other families as well with special needs children, it's something that we have to get out there. But going back, because I do fall onto different branches. um, the word no,
Hmm.
I couldn't say no to people. I
Interesting.
felt I felt bad. I felt guilty because I was supposed to be always there for others. So I was told.
Yeah. And sometimes that's an unfair idea to put in someone's head.
Yes. But unfortunately, our parents only do the best that they can do from what they know how to do.
Correct.
Right? And that is my way of how I've healed through all my journeys in my life, is understanding that. And we'll say it again because it's really important that people realize this. There's so many people that are holding on to anger and to hostilities of what their parents have done to them or their siblings or all the rest of it. And here's the thing: people usually do the best that they can do from what they know how to do.
Very true.
And we are now in a different world where we are now educating ourselves as parents, as everything. It's a different world than how I grew up. My parents didn't even think of going and taking a parenting course. You didn't do
I
those things. You were so busy with it, trying to manage family and stay at home moms and all the rest, right?
Absolutely. It just wasn't a thing in our era. You know, the
No.
family unit was completely different from when I had my kids. I mean, completely. And, with me, it was more, I was older. I would say when my kids got in school, because once your kids are in school and you volunteer once, you are trapped, and it's like, oh, well, will you do this? Can you do this? And, of course, I was PTO vice president. I did, you name it. I did it, classroom helper, playground. I did it all until I finally got mad at myself because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. And so finally, when I said no, you become kind of, the enemy, And it's really interesting how many people are your friend with a yes, but have no use for you with a no. And I learned that very quickly.
So did I. My first major wake-up call is when I went through my divorce and how people scattered away from me because I didn't have the money anymore. My life was so challenging. I was very, unfortunately, my friends started pushing away because they didn't want to be around me because I wasn't quite as much as fun as I usually am. So all these things but here's the thing now. Through the years, I feel guilty for saying no. And now, if it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for me. And even if it's for my kids, it doesn't matter. If it's no, it's no. Now, if I think it's warranted and I need to, and it doesn't work for me time-wise, then I'll say, okay, I will love to help you, but this time doesn't work for me. We need to be able to speak our words. We need to be able to say what it is. We don't have to feel guilty for saying no, but if it's somebody who you feel you want to explain yourself, here's the difference. You can explain why and then talk about it so that you can maybe come to something together.
Yes.
But we also have to learn that no is a full sentence too.
Period. One word, period, done. Yes, I agree with that totally. And I was very guilty of that for a long time, of stuttering and stammering over my words because there was no real reason other than I don't want to. And that doesn't go over very well, So I'm busy with this, or I'm starting this, and then I got to a point, well, you're really kind of lying. I don't like to lie, so I just got comfortable with no. I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. I was never rude, but you can either accept that and be mad at me, or accept that and say, okay, thank you for your time, but no is no now.
Okay, because you've now moved into a different stream in life.
Yes.
Where you're now wearing a different hat. You're wearing the hat now of confidence.
Absolutely. And I'm also wearing the hat of understanding that I never get my time back. And to be angry at something that is utilizing your time, and you're mad at yourself for doing it, that's not a good situation. I don't want to leave something I've said yes. If I've said yes to it, I want to feel it in my heart.
Yeah.
I want to be really pleased with what I'm doing. It has to mean something to me. To go down and sling hash in the cafeteria, that's not going to make me happy. And that's going to be time I never get back. I don't have that anymore, but, when my kids ate lunch at school, but it has to be really something that I love. I have to love it and respect it to say yes to it. And that's respecting myself too.
Bingo. I was waiting for that part to come.
Yeah.
We teach people, here's the thing for everybody, a news alert. We teach people how to respect us and work with us and showing them our boundaries by what we accept.
Beautiful. Yes. Yes. And we're entitled to treat ourselves kindly. We're entitled to say no if it doesn't work for us. I the people pleasing for me, I'm not going to say, If someone were really needed my help, even if it was something I didn't really like, but it was to help a friend, then I'm going to say, okay, yes, I will help you. I'm never going, if someone's really in need, I'm never going to turn that down. But if it's just something that, you know, they're asking 10 people and I'm the one that says yes, then we've got an issue.
Yeah, that's a big one. So I want you, whoever's watching this, to really think back about, so many times I know I was guilty of it. I still do from time to time, but I do what just like you. If it's something that means something to me, or, a friend that, I think that is, I want to help out, or they're going through their own hard time. You listen, when you help others, you help yourself too.
True,
It
true.
really does make your heart feel better.
And you know, Glenda, sometimes saying no is an act of self-love.
Yes, yes.
You know, you're taking care of you for whatever your reason is. It doesn't matter if you want to say no. That's a form of self-love and
Yes.
and worthiness. So if people were aware of that, they might rethink it. You know, on a Sunday, maybe I don't want to get out of bed at 10 o'clock and blow up balloons for the marathon. You know, it's just that simple. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. I so get it. And I so like I said, it's such a special moment in life when you actually get to the part where you really are comfortable within yourself and can do that. And what, that's one of the lovely things about aging. You gain a lot of wisdom from what you've gone through, but it's beyond that wisdom of that comfort level within yourself that, if you know something's really important, you go and do it. And if you know that it's not as important to you, and it's not going to be something, like maybe it's something that would actually could put you in behind things. So that's why it's just important to do with what do you feel? There's nothing worse than somebody that goes out and does thing, and then under their breath they're mumbling, "Ugh, I wish I didn't do this."
Yeah. And you know, your demeanor will show where you're at. I my kids have always told me, Mom, you are the worst liar, you know, because they come out in an outfit and they're like, do you like this? Yeah. My voice, my face, I'm just not a good liar. So if I'm asked to do something and I choose to do it kind of against my will or whatever, or really want to say no, but I'm doing it, I don't hide my feelings very well. You know, I would be angry at myself and that would come out. People would know, what's wrong with her? It's because I'm mad at me because I didn't love myself enough to say no.
Wow. Okay, so you just said something else. You're mad at me.
Mad at
People
me.
will sort of say to themselves, if you all of a sudden you're feeling something and you become, for me, if I have nothing good to say, I don't say anything at all.
Right.
And for people around me, for Glenda not to be speaking and saying things, people will look, what's wrong with Glenda?
Is she dying? No, is Glenda okay?
That's not me. I really just, I call it as I see it most of the times. But if you have nothing good to say, then don't say anything.
Right.
I'm not, maybe years ago I might have said something. Today, it's not worth it. I'm not here to make other people feel hurt or lower or anything. I love to bring people up. And for that, if I were to say something, first of all, if I say something and it's wrong, I will definitely come back and apologize once
Oh, me too.
I realize, because that's part of my form of respect for myself as respect for others.
True.
But it's important that we learn that when if we do something that's wrong for ourselves, we have to know that where it's coming from. That's really, I think, the thing what I'm trying to get across. Because when
Right.
we understand where that's coming from, it leads to us to a more understanding ourselves.
And sometimes we don't take enough time with ourselves to understand why it's a yes or why it's a no. Where is it coming from in your body? Did this happen another time? What's going on? And you can look at things and determine the why or why not of them if you take the time.
I like that. It's really important that I think that's the biggest thing is what you just said of taking the time. How many times are you in a conversation? And I was guilty of this, so I have to admit, where before somebody's already finished with the conversation, instead of listening, maybe it's taking a second or maybe more to digest what was said and then respond. I was responding without even waiting for that person to finish.
That's so common, so common. And we listen to respond, we don't listen to hear. And that's so very common. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know I was doing it until I started moderating on Clubhouse. Because when you're moderating on Clubhouse, you have to listen to them, so you can either ask the next question, you can continue on with the conversation. And then I thought back and I thought, my gosh, all these years, it's kind of rude. It's self-serving in a way, and it could be construed as ego. Is all you're waiting for is so you can give your opinion or your side of the story. And so you're really dismissing that person who's speaking.
Yes. A dear person who's become a friend, his biggest saying is, and this is from David Meltzer, of be more interested than interesting. And
I
it's
love that.
right.
I love that.
It says so much.
And by doing that, you're really making someone feel special. And it's the simplest of things, is just to be interested in them. Don't walk by them, don't dismiss them. You could have a 2-minute conversation, but if you listen, if you look in their eyes, and then when they're done, ask a question about them. Well, pertaining to what they said, to show that you care enough to listen to them, that they are special.
Or asking important questions so they can even expand on what they're saying.
True, true. And no one really, I don't know many people that do that. I'll be honest. When you're out in a group, or even when you're going to, meetups or something, it's so interesting that the eyes start. It's like, gotta go. So yeah, it's such a simple little thing. And if you can do something that simple and make someone feel good and walk away just a little taller than they walked in, to me, that's worth it. Not everybody has self-esteem. Not everybody feels good about themselves. We're in a world that sometimes pounds you into the ground. So if something that small can make someone have a little bit of a better day, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that whole idea of, I believe in building others up and not knocking them down. So let's ask the question. I want you to think to yourselves as you're listening to Nicole and I talking about all these things. Do you build other people up? Or do you feel that there's people around you that aren't building you up and possibly knocking you down? And a lot of times it happens in our own families. That's the sad part of it all.
Absolutely. That you'll either be talked over, or in mid-sentence, someone will disagree with you and just cut you off. And you don't have to agree. That's the beauty of being you, and that's the beauty of that person being themselves. But you don't have to argue. for a difference of opinion or for not agreeing. And that's the beauty of raising your vibration too, is you don't always have that ego clutching at you to get what you think in. Because, in the big scheme of things, you put 10 people in a room and they're not going to agree on every little point. But it doesn't matter because it's their opinion. You have yours. It's not something that can be argued. It just is what it is. And when someone tries to argue with you about your opinion, that's a very insecure person. There's something really in there that they're not happy with about themselves. And so you kind of, once you are aware of these kind of things, you start looking at it maybe from a different perspective. I don't let it bother me anymore. I know no matter what I say, that person's always going to disagree, put me down or whatever. And I will choose to walk away. Nice to meet you. Bam, gone.
But there's times where it's a little more difficult because, if it is happening in a family, and there's many, many times where families are actually the hardest things to walk away from. And, even as I'll say this as a parent and parenting your children, I will challenge any parent, instead of focusing on what your child might have done wrong or bad or something, I challenge you to bite your tongue and find something good that you can say about your child so that the focus goes on the good and not the bad. Because when you start doing that, you see your child actually turning around and doing more better because they're getting the attention from the good and they're not getting the attention from the bad.
And that's a great point. And, that's when you learn to reframe something. And it's not, to not reframe it is kind of ego too, because you can always change like that because there's two sides to every story. And you choose to reframe that maybe for your child to make them feel a little better. There's nothing wrong with that. Why do you have to put them down? Just reframe it.
And that's really, there's a really solid golden nugget that, I want families to really understand, because it's very easy that, that you get challenged. Our children always challenge us. I know that was me as a child. I pushed every single button all the time for my parents. Maybe subconsciously, I was trying to get the attention that I didn't get. I don't know. Maybe possibly it was, in the early years, I never understood all of that. It wasn't until I got older that I could look back and start to understand what went on in my childhood. But as I saw as a parent, it's so different when I see parents losing themselves and doing things like horribly of hitting a child.
Oh.
I only remember one time I didn't hit my daughter. I actually did wash her mouth out with soap once, and when she was a little girl, because she gave me the F-bomb, and she just hit me. And that was the only time. I never did any of that. I learned to understand more and sit back and learn. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not far from it. But we learn as we go through. But what a wonderful thing today that we can talk about this and that other people can listen, and maybe they can learn before something actually happens and that they fall apart or they knock their child down. And I'm not talking about physically. Emotionally is just as bad as anything physically.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? The one thing I learned a long time ago, and I always tell this to people, my niece is a new mother, and we don't own our children. We're here to guide and to do our best, but they come in different packages. Their wants, their needs, their temperament, you name it, what they want to do when they grow up, and you've always got the situation, well, my kid's going to do this. You don't own your children. You just don't.
It's true. And you know what? I learned that lesson. It was a hard lesson for me too, because, I sort of thought that I sort of had that, I was there to be putting them under my umbrella type of thing, and sort of feeling my way. And then, at the age of, um, the week after the age of 18, when my son turned 18, he sort of left and went off to meet somebody. And I learned the hard way that, those years, it was all about me giving them the tools of life. And from that point on, I'm not driving the ship anymore. Like, my hands are off the wheel. He's taken over driving now, and I have nothing to say. And you have to
Right.
trust during those years that you've given your child all the lessons and the tools to make it through on life.
Right. And then there's just the mother's prayer after that.
And then you hope that, that you've done a good enough job that they come back when they don't have the tools within themselves and they need advice, which you can only give to them. You throw it out, but you don't expect anything back from that advice.
No,
The
no.
whole idea of the advice is to give it and let it land where it may. And that's okay.
Yeah. Right. Right. And that's where it comes in. Hopefully, the upbringing is strong enough to let them fall back into just what you've taught them about integrity or being honest, or, you're just like, oh, please let them remember that time I made her apologize to so and so because she talked behind her back, and things like that. It seems little, but some of those little things are important, very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's all part of all of this. It's we're all living and going on a journey. And this journey isn't about where we're going to end up, because sometimes we don't end up. Like, I never ended up where I thought I was going to start.
Oh man, if I look back, it's like, where did that come from? How did that happen? Even today, I'm like, how did I get here? What am I doing? How did this, you have to kind of reflect a little bit on, you know, someone knew more than I did when I came here to put me in this position that I'm in, to where I have this driving need to help others now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, look at, as our journeys always go on, and we never know what's going to happen. Neither did this show. We didn't know where we're starting off. As we conversations lead us to what we need to be talking about. And I really think that at some point, we should do going back, and talking about, parenting, and the mistakes that we've made, because I always talk about the things that had gone on and the mistakes that I've made, because from those mistakes I have grown so much and have become so much wiser, and how I've even been able to teach my children into becoming, very much successful, respectful adults, which I am so proud of today.
Yes.
It doesn't happen accidentally.
No, it doesn't. And when you look back, it what seemed like it was for, and there's that saying that the days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
When you're in that mix right at the time, it's like, my gosh, unfortunately, it's like, well, when are they going to be out of diapers? When is this going to be over? And as I look back, you know, it went so very fast.
Well, and I agree with you with that. As in 3 days, I am going to be, giving my daughter away at her wedding.
Uh,
And from diapers to, walking her down the aisle, I'm getting goosebumps. It's crazy how fast the time has gone. And for a mom, I couldn't be happier or prouder in, as this watching this young woman who was a little terror when she was, and I had some pretty nasty thoughts in the very early years because she didn't want to stop crying, feeling exhausted from having two children, having a 2-year-old and a newborn infant who cried 24/7, and of how you make it through all of that. And that's why I say, I think coming forward, we're going to talk about the times of what we go through, because um, so many people are living under very trying times, and it's really hard, the coping mechanisms that we need to learn from, and who best to teach it than people who have already been through it.
Exactly. And we're not saying the fact that every child is different, we're not saying that everything we did was perfect.
No.
But when you can reflect on something and look back at it and think, I didn't do that quite right,
Yeah.
but maybe I can help someone to do it correct with their kids.
Or not correct, where there is no,
right or wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there is some wrongs. We all know that, but maybe we can make it a little bit easier than some of the things. And I understand. I also was a stay-at-home mom for many years, and it's a very hard. I think it's one of the hardest jobs. I've had many jobs in my life, and I think the hardest job was staying home and keeping those kids, stimulated and growing mentally, physically, and all the rest of it. But on top of it all is sometimes what we need to do for ourselves, because sometimes we don't do that. And even today, we need to consistently do things for our own selves, how we help ourselves grow to become stronger, wiser. It's how do we keep ourselves young? Well, this is where we started at the beginning again. We have to continuously do things to build ourselves up and keep ourselves happy. Exercise, eating well, sleeping, all these things are the keys. I think they're the keys to the palace.
They really are. And in looking back, I wish I would have utilized the simplicity of what you're talking about more, instead of burning candles till, I'm burning both ends of the candle.
Yeah.
And now I look at what I eat, when I eat it. How does it make me feel? Is this something that's working for me? If not, get rid of it. And I have purged naturally just by listening to my body so many things out of my system. And there's times I think, how, my gosh, when I eat even like sometimes a potato chip now, I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel good. And now it's more about, I don't really like fruit, but I blend it in a drink every morning, so I drink my fruit.
Okay.
But I just, the things that I'm using for my body now for fuel, 100% different than I used to.
And it's so important, yeah, because we are the foods that we eat.
Yes.
And and it's really paying attention, as you said. I have some food intolerances, and I've always said, people say to me, one of the things I'll say to someone, oh, sorry, I don't do chocolate. You don't do chocolate? No, can't do chocolate. It doesn't, and they say, how do you live without chocolate? Well, when you eat something that makes you feel sick, why would you want to eat it? It doesn't matter. We all have to. So the important part of listening to our souls, our minds, our bodies, everything. If something doesn't feel good, whether it's food, whether it's somebody who's you're encountering, whatever, start tapping in.
Yes, your body knows everything. It's intuitive. It will let you know whether it's food, whether it's a person. When the hair on your arms goes up, look around you because something's not right. Our body will let us know, and we need to depend on it more. It has saved me many times. Intuition has. And I honor my body. I absolutely honor its knowledge.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're getting to the end of our hour. And yeah, I know time goes by really quickly.
It does.
And I love hanging out with you. It's such an empowering time that I get to hang out with a very special person, and I really am grateful that you were in my life, my dear. You
I feel
shine.
the same way.
It's a beautiful thing, and when we're here, that we're hoping that our words just at least give you something to think about, if nothing else. And remember, below this video, we always have in our descriptions a way of contacting Nicole or myself. So you know what? If there's something that bothers you, or something that you do and you need a little bit of further advice, or just want to get something even off your chest, reach out. That's what it's really all about. So Nicole, can you give us any little wisdoms before we mark it off to being another day?
This has been a really good conversation, and it's one that I wish I would have heard many years ago. And I think what I've learned in aging is that you have to depend on yourself for many, many things. You have to depend on yourself, whether you have someone with you or not, to get out there and go to the gym. You have to depend on yourself. If you can't find someone to paddleboard, go by yourself. If you're feeling a little lethargic, look at the food you're eating. What are you consuming? And there's so much information out there now too. It's almost as if you don't research something that's making you feel maybe yucky or sluggish, shame on you, because we have more information right now than we've ever had before. And I know I'm always looking things up. Well, I feel this, I better, check it out. But honor your body, honor your mind. That leads to a pure soul. And it's just an amazing thing right now that we live in these times where we have so many choices, so many opportunities. It's really phenomenal. And I want to say that age is just a number, because if I was in my 20s and thought about me doing this now, if I would have thought about this age, I would have thought, oh my God, I'll have been buried for 10 years by now. But here's the deal. Your mind is your key. Is your mind going to keep you old, or is it going to let you stay young? That's the key. And for me, I'm staying young. I'm mentally staying young, physically staying as young as I can. And that's the end of sentence, period.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, my dear. It's been
You're
an absolute
welcome.
pleasure. And remember, you know what? If there's things on here that you think that somebody else could get a little bit of knowledge for, or something they need to hear, share it. Give us a little liking, share us, and subscribe to our channel, and come along on our journey as we going out there so we can empower you to be your best selves. My name is Glenda Kroll, and my host here is Nicole Harvick, and we're here to make you shine. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.